The Philippines is said to be one of the fastest growing economies in Asia, with about 270 stocks listed on the Philippine stock market and only 30 stocks in the Philippine Stock Exchange Index, or PSEI. The Philippine stock market continues to remain at an attractive level for local and foreign investors. Global Strategy Real Estate keeps you updated with the latest information on the Philippine stock market to prove you just that. In collaboration with AB Capital Securities Inc., Global Strategy Real Estate presents to you the weekly stock market wrap-up, posting every Friday of every week. Hello everyone and welcome back to the weekly stock market wrap-up with AB Capital Securities Inc. Before we start, we have Mr. Yumura to give us a few words in Japanese.
皆さんこんにちは、フィリピンアセットコンサルティングの家村です。まずちょっと先週に引き続きですね、ちょっと出演させていただいてるんですけれども、マーケットがね、本当に熱いですよね。フィリピンの PSE は、今日ちょっとね、下げてますけども、まだ7000をね、キープしてますんで、基本的にはその上昇基調のトレンドなのかなという感じですよね。で、世界的にはですね、いろんな動きが最近あるんですけど、まずワクチンの開発がね、最近のね、アストラゼネカですか、アストラゼネカとオックスフォード大学がね、新しいワクチンを開発したというね、ニュースがリリースされてますので、これでファイザーとね、ファイザー、ビオンテック、それからモデルナに続いて、3つ目のワクチンということで、これもね、株式市場にとってはすごい明るいニュースなのかなと。それからですね、あと、そうですね、FRB、ごめんなさい、アメリカの財務長官ですよね、が財務大臣ですか、ジャネット・イエレンさん、元 FRB のね、議長の方。この方がね、どっちかというと、ハト派ということで、これもマーケットから交換されているというようなこととかですね。あと、ビットコインもね、史上最高値ですか、19,000ドルですか、超えてきてますんで、非常にね、全体的に非常にですね、マーケット熱いなという感じなので、私のポートフォリオはですね、昨日現在ですけども、フィリピン株、プラス 16.35%、4ヶ月ですね。なので、年率だともう 50% 超えてるんで、なんとかですね、今年ですね、ちょっとね、いいパフォーマンス出していきたいな、今年来年とですね、と思っています。はい。OK。で、今日はですね、今日また新しいですね、セクターがフィリピンのですね、株式市場で来年紹介されます。これエネルギーと、公共インフラですね、この部分が新しいセクターになりますので、ちょっとここのあたりね、深掘りして今日聞いていきたいなと思います。Okay, thank you, Steph. What I said, the stock market around the world is very hot at the moment, and Philippine stock market today a little bit downtrend, but still keep 7,000 level. So I think still Philippine market is going into the next phase for the growth, lift up. And global economy, global market is also good, especially the good news for the vaccine development. This week, new vaccine development announced from AstraZeneca and Oxford University, in addition to the Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna. So it is a very positive news for the market. And also, I think Janet Yellen was appointed as a finance minister of the United States. I think she's also pretty welcome for the market, and this is also one of the factors to market go up. Even Bitcoin, also market prices are going up, and they are reaching the historical high level. They have beyond the 19,000 US dollars. So I think investors around the world are really exciting and in this at the moment. So today I want to hear the stories from Lex and Ransom about the new sectors. Today the new sector is going to be introduced, which is energy and utility. This is a hot spot, I think. So I want to hear this sector today. Thank you, Steph.
And now we have Mr. Lance to give us this week's stock market report.
Hi everyone, I'm Lance and I'm here to give you this week's market wrap. So first off, for the US markets, what moved the major averages for this week is first, AstraZeneca and University of Oxford COVID-19 vaccine was found to be 90% effective. So that brings up to 3 vaccines which are found to be effective this month. And on top of that, what brought down sentiment for this week was the 7-day average COVID cases are now at more than 165,000, which is up by 24% versus last week. And for the Philippines, some economic news. Cunha flags government COVID-19 underspending. So as you all know, consumption here in the Philippines has been massively hit when COVID-19 entered the Philippines. And so the government really needs to step up its spending to support the economy. And for the third quarter, government spending wasn't really that strong, and that also weighed for the third quarter GDP of the Philippines. Next, South Korea eyes more investment in the Philippines but flags high corporate tax. Next, BSP likely to keep dovish stance. So in the latest BSP policy meeting, they did a surprise rate cut. They cut the policy rate to a record low of 2% as the economy remains to be in recession and as the company's earnings remain to be far off their pre-COVID levels. So as mentioned before, weighted average decrease of the index company's earnings was about 33%. And finally, the BPO sector is expected to contract for the first time this year in 11 years. And some corporate news, Double Dragon files for 14.7 billion peso REIT with the SEC, and M-Wide proves financial muscle to put NAIA Rehab back on track. So for the index, we're up by 150 points on a week-on-week basis, where we've reached the 7,100 level. So the positive sentiment for this week was mainly brought about by the 60-day moving average crossing above the 200-day moving average. So that's basically a bullish technical pattern. And also for this week will be the deadline for the MSCI rebalancing, which will be on November 27. And for our market outlook, we expect to see a market pullback once the vaccine optimism fades and once the momentum fades. At this level, the index is trading at about 18 times PE based on 2021 earnings. And the average PE of the index, or average 5-year and 10-year PE of the index, is just around 17.3 to 17.7 times PE. So recall that last week I've mentioned that the Philippine Stock Exchange is looking to increase the number of indices from 6 to 8. And last week I've discussed which companies we think will be reclassified from their current sector to the technology sector. So for this week, we'll be focusing on which companies we think will be reclassified from their current sector to the energy and utility sector. So just like what we did last week, we'll be narrowing down the list, this 14 stocks, based on their liquidity, growth potential, and their earnings. So first off, if we filter the companies based on their liquidity, if we just consider companies with at least 5 billion peso value turnover for the past month, we'll just be down with this 6 stocks, which are ASEN, AP, FGen, Manila Water, Meralco, and Shell. And among those 6 companies, here are the 3 companies that we think have the highest growth potential. First is ASEN. It looks to grow its attributable capacity to 5,000 megawatts by 2025, with 50% from new renewables. So it's currently at 1,800 attributable capacity. So basically, FGen or ASEN is embarking on a $2 billion restructuring program, and right now it's already lining up its sources for capital for its program. Next is First Gen. It looks to introduce interim floating storage regasification unit, or FSRU, by as early as the third quarter of 2022. Engineering, procurement, and construction, or the EPC contract, has already been signed, and they're looking to start construction by the fourth quarter of this year. And the permanent onshore processing LNG facility looks to be constructed after the FSRU is built. And finally, AP is looking to grow its attributable capacity by about 910 megawatts next year, as the beginning coal plant is expected to be operational by then. And finally, filtering based on the company's dividends. So energy and utility companies are really famous for giving out high and consistent dividends. And if you look at the average 5-year dividend yield, Meralco has the highest among the five with an average yield of 5.26%. So I think it's important to note that when you're looking for a dividend investment, it's a more important metric to look into is the dividend yield as opposed to the dividend per share, because the dividend yield is the return you get for investing at a particular stock price. So the formula for dividend yield is dividend per share divided by the stock price that you're looking to invest in. And finally, here's the dividend policy of the aforementioned stocks. And again, I'd like to reiterate, if you're looking for a dividend play, calculate the dividend yield and not just look at the company's dividend per share. And that's it for this week's market wrap. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you, Ransom, for your presentation. You identify the 14 companies in the sector of energy sector. Is there any new names in 14 or?
Yeah, so far those are just the companies among the sector. As mentioned, as presented by Lance earlier, I think the last slide, if we can show that slide again. I think AC Energy, FGen, and Aboitiz Power are the market leaders in the industry. I would say AC Energy has the most potential, given that the market cap right now of AC Energy is only at 50 billion pesos. If you compare it to FGen, 100 billion pesos, and Aboitiz Power, AP is at 200 billion pesos. So you can definitely see that AC Energy has more potential to grow at a faster pace. And of course, with the push in the renewable sector, then this would be beneficial for them. And of course, it's a newly acquired company. So in terms of financial capability, we don't see any problem. Especially for this year, I believe the capital requirements to expand their portfolio for this year is already covered. They're planning to do an SRO in the next few quarters. In fact, they already disclosed the price. I believe it's at 225 per share. So given that it's trading significantly higher, so that offers a more attractive proposition for you to acquire AC Energy, especially for existing holders. If you want to add your position in AC Energy, so that gives you the option to subscribe more shares at a discount.
I see. AC Energy. AC Energy is included in the MSCI end of November.
Yes.
Yeah, November.
In fact, it was just newly added to that. So which is why we've seen a significant rally also for AC Energy.
So the price of the AC Energy current price is already included the joining to the MSCI, or still have a space to go up?
Yes, in fact, the last week of the rebalancing will be on Friday. So global funds would close their position by Friday. So theoretically, let's say for example, for a small cap index, let's say for example, if you have 100 million for an allocation for AC Energy, so they need to accumulate a certain number of shares to rebalance their portfolio. And given that it's a newly added company, so definitely also given the scale of the size of AC Energy, it's quite small. That's why we're seeing a significant rally also. So it's easy to push up the price of AC Energy at this point.
I see. Thank you. And so I checked the PSC site about AC, and they Bracan Power Generation. This is a subsidiary, Bracan Power Generation. They are selling certain percentage of the shares of ACE.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, is there any impact for the market price of the ACE?
It's so right now what they're trying to do is they're trying to rebalance their portfolio. They do have some coal assets remaining, but essentially the goal of AC Energy is to shift into more renewables. Well, if you look at consensus estimate targets of AC Energy, it was actually the price actually surpassed that already. I believe the consensus average price is somewhere between 4 pesos. But those are like 12-month target prices. So, assuming that as mentioned, as presented by Lance earlier, if they're looking to expand their capacity to about 5,000 gigawatts of capacity, that would be very significant, especially if you compare it to the scale of Aboitiz Power and even First Gen.
I see. Finally, I want to hear the more long-term outlook or perspective for the energy market in Philippines. Are definitely the conventional, the shifting, starting from the conventional energy to the renewable energy. So could you tell me the market outlook and time frame to shift to the renewable energy entire Philippine market?
I guess just an overview also. There was an executive order signed by, in fact, there was a memo released by the Department of Energy that you're not allowed to construct new coal power plants, except for projects that was already approved by the department. So in effect, of course, that would be beneficial for renewable players. Right now, I would say that the power supply we're under supply. In fact, there's more room for power plants to expand their capacity, and of course, as the economy grows, then the demand for power will definitely follow. A few years back, in fact, the Philippines was had a power problem, especially in the Vismin region. Those are underserved areas. So especially if the economy is booming for that particular region, Vismin region, then definitely that would require more power companies to construct to expand their capacity. And of course, it takes a while for companies to construct a power plant. Normally, it takes them 3 years from the start of construction until the operation. So I wouldn't say that the coal power plant will disappear, in the near term. Of course, given that there is, of course, the lack of power supply also in the Philippines, so that won't disappear in the short time frame. But definitely, the direction is towards renewable energy. So that would benefit companies, as mentioned by Lance, AC Energy, FGen, Aboitiz Power, and even Meralco. Although Meralco is more into power distributor, they're not really they're not really into the generation business. I do believe very minimal. But of course, Meralco supplies about 70% of the total power supply, power requirements of the Philippines. So that would be also an indirect play into the power sector. So I would say playing the power industry in the Philippines is in a way correlated to the economic growth. So, as the economy grows, especially with the huge expected recovery in the Philippines, I believe there's even one major institution called that the Philippines with the GDP growth would be anywhere between 13% to 15%. For next year, but of course you have
13 to 15. Oh,
that's very significant.
That's double digit. Okay, that's great.
I think that's one of the most optimistic figure I've seen. But if you look at the consensus, I would say anywhere between 6% to 6%. Quite wide discrepancy. 6 to 13%. Of course, that's also mainly because of base effects. The economy is expected to contract about 9% this year. But of course, I think we do believe that the economic growth is on the way up. We've seen it in the second quarter. So that would be good for the power sector as a whole.
Of course, yeah. Okay, thank you for your answer.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yumura, Mr. Lance, and Mr. Lexer for joining us today. And that is it for our weekly stock market wrap-up with AB Capital Securities Inc. Thank you and see you on the next video. Follow us on our social media accounts, and for more videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.